Most people wear exhaustion like a badge of honor. We brag about being busy, glorify sleepless nights, and convince ourselves that running on empty somehow means we're living. But what if the truth is, we're not living, we're leaking? Every time we ignore rest, neglect our peace, or silence our own needs, we're teaching the world that our worth is tied to our productivity. Self-care isn't selfish, it's survival. Because a man who can't take care of himself can't lead love or lift anyone else. The urgency is simple. You can't pour from an empty cup, and the longer you wait to refill it, the faster your purpose begins to fade. Rest is not a reward for doing enough. It's the discipline that allows you to keep going. Somewhere along the way, we learn to associate rest with weakness, as if slowing down means losing progress. But what if the real strength lies in knowing when to stop? What if mastery isn't in the endless grind, but in the courage to recharge when your body and mind whisper that it's time? Men especially have been conditioned to believe that exhaustion equals effort, and effort equals worth. Yet every time you ignore rest, you're not proving your strength. You're quietly dismantling it. The modern world celebrates business like it's a virtue. We measure success by how full our schedules are, not how full our souls feel. Rest has become something we earn instead of something we protect. For women, this often shows up as the invisible labor of holding everyone else together. Family, work, emotions, while silently running on fumes. For men, it's the constant pressure to perform, to provide, to stay unshaken no matter what. Both end up carrying an invisible weight, believing that stopping to rest is falling behind. But discipline isn't just pushing harder. It's knowing when to pause before you break. True rest is an act of strategy, not surrender. The greatest athletes don't train nonstop. They build recovery into their plan because they understand growth happens in the pause. The same is true in life. Your muscles, your mind, your emotions, they rebuild during rest. Without that space, you don't get stronger, you get scattered. Yet, most of us are so addicted to movement that stillness feels uncomfortable. We scroll when we're tired, we work when we're drained, and we confuse distraction for restoration. But rest isn't about doing nothing. It's about doing something meaningful for your own renewal. Men often pride themselves on resilience, on being the rock for everyone else. But even rocks erode under constant pressure. The truth is, it takes more discipline to rest intentionally than it does to keep running from yourself. It means facing the thoughts you've been avoiding, the emotions you've been suppressing, the fears you've been masking with work. Rest exposes you. It forces you to meet the version of yourself that's been buried under responsibility. That's why many resist it. Because rest doesn't just restore your body, it reveals your truth. For women, rest often comes with guilt. The world has told them that taking time for themselves is selfish or indulgent. Yet, when a woman reclaims her rest, she reclaims her power. She stops pouring from an empty cup and starts setting a new standard for how she deserves to live. For men, rest requires humility, the willingness to admit, the willingness to you're not invincible, that even strength has limits. When a man rests, He reconnects with clarity, patience, and presence. He stops reacting and starts leading with purpose. Rest is the reset button we keep forgetting exists. It's the moment where your mind catches up with your mission, where your energy realigns with your values. Discipline isn't in the grind. It's in knowing when to step back so you can step forward stronger. Because without rest, success becomes noise, and noise without meaning will eventually consume you. We live in a culture that glorifies the grind but hides the wounds beneath it. The hustle has become the mask we wear to prove we're okay. Even when we're falling apart inside, we fill every moment with work, distractions, and noise because silence would expose the truth we're afraid to face. For many men, the hustle becomes armor, a way to avoid vulnerability, pain, or the feeling of not being enough. They confuse business with healing, believing that if they just achieve more, earn more, or stay occupied long enough, the emptiness will disappear. But what you bury alive doesn't die, it festers. The hustle is seductive because it rewards avoidance. It gives you purpose, validation, and control, all while keeping you too busy to confront what's really going on. Women do this too, but differently. They hustle emotionally, caring for others, keeping the peace, showing strength in chaos, while silently neglecting their own needs. Both genders are trapped in the same loop, working harder to outrun what hurt them. But healing doesn't happen through motion, it happens through meaning. You can't outwork your pain, you have to outgrow it. Behind every relentless drive, there's often an unmet need. Some men chase success to fill the space where love or approval should have been. Some women overextend themselves to prove they're worthy of being chosen or seen. The hustle becomes a coping mechanism, a distraction that feels productive but prevents progress. Because healing requires stillness, and stillness demands honesty. It means sitting with your pain without trying to fix it, mask it, or schedule it away. That's the part hustle can't do. It can only delay the confrontation your heart has been asking for. The irony is that the more you hustle to prove you're fine, the further you drift from who you actually are. You start performing instead of living, producing instead of feeling. For men, this often shows up as emotional disconnection, being present physically, but absent mentally. They build walls made of ambition, thinking protection will bring peace. When in truth, peace only comes from openness. For women, it manifests as self-sacrifice, caring for everyone else while quietly erasing themselves. Both end up exhausted, not because of the work they're doing, but because of the weight they're carrying. Real healing begins where hustle ends. It's when you stop chasing validation and start seeking understanding. When you stop asking, what's next? And start asking, what hurts? Healing is not passive, it's active awareness. It's having the courage to see your scars without shame and to give yourself permission to rest without guilt. The bravest thing a man or woman can do is stop pretending that productivity equals purpose. Because when the noise fades and the masks come off, what's left is the truth you were too busy to face. And that's where freedom begins. Energy is the most valuable currency you have, and yet most people spend it like it's endless. We guard our money, protect our time, but rarely protect our energy. Every conversation, every choice, every environment either deposits into your energy or drains it, and most don't even notice until they're running on fumes. Men often mistake stamina for strength, pushing themselves past exhaustion, believing endurance equals success. But when your energy is gone, your clarity goes with it. You stop leading with purpose and start reacting out of survival. The truth is, how you spend your energy defines the quality of your life far more than how you spend your time. Every person you allow access to your attention is either multiplying your energy or stealing it. The problem is, we often invest in the wrong things. People who drain us, habits that numb us, that no longer fulfill us. We hustle for validation instead of alignment. Men pour energy into proving they can handle everything alone, carrying burdens that were never meant to be carried in silence. Women give energy away trying to fix, nurture, and hold everyone together, even when no one's holding them. Both end up depleted, not because they're weak, but because they keep spending energy without ever refilling it. The way you protect your energy is the way you protect your future. When you start saying no to what doesn't align with your peace, you create space for what actually matters. It's not selfish. It's strategic. Because every yes you give has a cost. You can't say yes to everything and expect to have energy left for what truly defines you. Men often see rest or saying no as losing ground, but it's the opposite. It's how you regain control. For women, protecting energy often means setting boundaries that others may not like, but every boundary built out of self-respect becomes a filter for peace. Energy management is emotional intelligence in action. It's learning to recognize what drains your spirit before it empties your soul. It's understanding that your body will whisper before it screams, and your burnout is the voice for energy you kept overspending. When you stop seeing energy as infinite, you start treating it with reverence. You begin choosing people who inspire you instead of exhaust you. Conversations that lift you instead of weigh you down, and habits that refill you instead of numb you. Your energy is the foundation of your influence. You can't lead others from depletion. You can't lead others from deeply when you're constantly running on survival mode. Men who learn to protect their energy lead with calm authority instead of aggression. Women who honor their energy radiate presence instead of pressure. When your energy is aligned with your purpose, you move differently. You stop chasing and start attracting. Because the way you spend your energy today determines the strength of every decision you'll make tomorrow. Boundaries are not walls that keep people out. They are doors that decide who gets to come in. Too often, we confuse boundaries with rejection, believing that saying no means we're being difficult, cold, or selfish. But boundaries aren't about shutting others out. They're about protecting the space that allows you to stay whole. The truth is, you can't live a healthy life if everyone has access to your energy, your emotions, and your peace. Boundaries don't destroy connection. They preserve it by making sure it's built on respect, not resentment. Many men struggle with boundaries because they were raised to equate love with sacrifice and strength with endurance. They believe that saying yes, even when it hurts, proves loyalty or leadership. But what it really proves is how willing they are to abandon themselves for approval. Every time you ignore what drains you to please others, you're not being strong. You're being silent about your own limits. Boundaries are not weakness. They're the discipline of self-respect. The man who cannot say no eventually loses the power of his yes. For women, boundaries often come with guilt because the world has conditioned them to nurture, to care, to give endlessly. They fear being called cold, distant, or unkind if they choose themselves. But every woman who sets a boundary is teaching others how to treat her. She's declaring that her worth isn't measured by how much she can endure. Boundaries don't make her less loving. They make her love sustainable, because love without limits eventually turns into exhaustion. When you start setting boundaries, people who benefited from your lack of them will call you selfish. That's normal. They were never respecting you. They were depending on your compliance. Boundaries challenge people to meet you where respect begins, not where comfort lies. It's uncomfortable because it changes the unspoken contracts we've built through people pleasing and over-giving. But that discomfort is growth in disguise. You don't lose people when you set boundaries. You lose those who were never meant to stay. Men often fear that setting boundaries will make them appear cold or disconnected, especially in leadership or relationships. But the opposite is true. A man with clear boundaries communicates better, leads with clarity, and connects with honesty. He doesn't burn out trying to be everything for everyone. He shows up where he's needed most, with presence, not pressure. Women who embrace boundaries discover that their strength doesn't come from doing it all, but from deciding what truly deserves their time and energy. Boundaries turn chaos into calm, noise into direction. Boundaries are an act of self-preservation that keeps your purpose alive. Without them, you become reactive, constantly adjusting to others instead of staying rooted in who you are. Every no you say to what doesn't align is a yes to your peace, your focus, and your future. Boundaries don't push people away. They attract the ones who value your worth. Because when you start protecting your space, you stop begging for respect. You start commanding it. Burnout doesn't begin with exhaustion. It begins with agreement. It starts the moment you silently nod to something that doesn't align with your values. When you say yes to what you know will drain you, when you tolerate what should have been confronted. Every small compromise, every swallowed truth, every ignored boundary stacks quietly until one day you wake up feeling empty, resentful, and disconnected from the person you were meant to be. Burnout isn't a sudden collapse. It's the slow erosion of your energy, signed by the choices you didn't question. Men are especially prone to these silent agreements because they're taught that endurance is a virtue. They internalize the belief that real strength means saying nothing, showing no weakness, and carrying the weight no matter how heavy it gets. So they agree to extra work, to emotional silence, to unrealistic expectations. believing that sacrifice is the price of being dependable. But strength without rest becomes a trap. What starts as commitment turns into resentment, and what begins as responsibility ends as burnout. When a man keeps agreeing to things that steal his peace, he's not being noble, he's being quietly dismantled. Women, on the other hand, often burn out through emotional overcommitment. They agree to be the listener, the fixer, the supporter, the peacekeeper, roles society has applauded but rarely reciprocated. They agree to show up for everyone else, even when no one shows up for them. Their burnout doesn't scream. It whispers through fatigue, irritability, and the slow loss of joy in things that once mattered. Every time they put themselves last, they sign another silent agreement with depletion. It's not a lack of strength. It's the result of giving strength away without replenishment. The danger of these silent agreements is that they disguise themselves as responsibility. You convince yourself you're doing the right thing by saying yes, by keeping quiet, by not rocking the boat. But responsibility without reflection turns into self-betrayal. Every yes that comes from fear instead of purpose drains your energy. Every unspoken truth becomes emotional debt. You start operating on autopilot, producing, performing, and pretending until your body forces you to stop. Burnout doesn't tap you on the shoulder, it takes you by the throat. Most people think burnout is caused by doing too much, but it's really caused by too little of what makes you feel alive. It's the result of living in constant misalignment, of giving your best energy to things that give you nothing back. Men burn out when their work replaces their worth. Women burn out when their care replaces their identity. Both lose themselves in the name of keeping things together. The irony is, the more you try to hold everything, the faster you fall apart. The first step out of burnout isn't rest, it's honesty. You have to recognize the silent agreements, you start rewriting them. It's admitting where you've been saying yes out of guilt, fear, or habit. It's reclaiming your right to stop, to breathe, to prioritize what fuels you instead of what drains you. Because every time you say yes to something that doesn't serve you, you're saying no to yourself. Burnout isn't a moment. It's a pattern. And the moment you break that pattern, you stop surviving and start living again. If you don't make time for yourself, life will eventually make it for you, and it won't be on your terms. Most people live as if they can outrun exhaustion, as if their bodies and minds will always keep up with their ambitions. But time has a way of collecting what you owe it. When you refuse to rest, reflect, or recover, life steps in and forces you to. Sometimes it's through burnout, illness, emotional breakdowns, or the quiet emptiness that settles in when success no longer feels fulfilling. The truth is, you can't cheat balance. You can only postpone the cost. Men often wear business like a badge of honor. They equate long hours, constant movement, and relentless drive with discipline and value. The problem is, in chasing achievement, many lose access to themselves. They become efficient machines, productive but disconnected. They tell themselves they'll slow down later. That rest is for when they earn it, but later rarely comes. The body keeps the score. The mind remembers every ignored signal. Eventually, the same drive that made them successful becomes the very thing that breaks them. The man who never makes time for himself becomes a stranger in his own life, present in motion, absent in meaning. Women experience this differently, but just as deeply. They spend so much of their energy taking care of others that they forget how to take care of themselves. The world praises them for being selfless, but that praise often disguises depletion. They postpone rest, passion, and peace because they believe the people they love come first. But love that costs you your well-being isn't love. It's neglect in disguise. When a woman never makes time for herself, she teaches others that her time isn't valuable. Life eventually reminds her it is, often through exhaustion that forces her to stop and rebuild what's been ignored. Ignoring yourself is a debt that life always collects. You can choose to pause willingly, or life will pause you painfully. We think of self-care as optional, but it's maintenance for the soul. Just like a car that runs endlessly without service, you can keep going until you can't. And when that breakdown comes, it doesn't just affect you, it affects everyone connected to you. Men who never slow down become emotionally unavailable, distant, and reactive. Women who never pause lose their light, their laughter, their natural spark. You can't give what you no longer have. Making time for yourself is not indulgence. It's understanding that your clarity, creativity, and relationships depend on your ability to be whole. You don't need to escape your life to find peace. You need to create space within it. For men, that might mean choosing stillness over constant action, stepping away from the noise long enough to listen to what's going on inside. For women, it often means reclaiming their right to rest without guilt, to say no without apology, and to remember that nurturing themselves is not abandonment of others. It's a model of balance. Life has a way of teaching balance through consequences. When you refuse to slow down, it slows you down. It slows you down. When you keep saying, life will make time for you in the form of forced rest, regret, or recovery, the universe doesn't punish neglect. It simply mirrors it. The hours you don't spend on your peace become days spent fixing what broke because you ignored it. The truth is, time is not something you find. It's something you choose. The more you prioritize yourself, the more life opens up in clarity, connection, and calm. Because when you finally make time for yourself, you stop chasing balance and start living it.